Mr. McClellan. Hope you're doing well. What we're going to go through here is the 7 acts of Leo Tolstoy. And I get a little too excited about this because Tolstoy is one of those lives that's just amazing to look at. So let's go ahead and jump in. I broke it down in a few acts, but the first act one is he's born into the privileged class, 1828. So what we mean by that is, obviously, if you haven't read any of the material already, yes, yeah, he's Russian. So he's born in the upper Russian class. He's educated by private foreign tutors. Most likely that would be French, which you'll see in our novel. They'll use a lot of French terms there. So he's probably educated by French tutor. Waited on by serfs. Serfs are peasants. And he was a wealthy landowner at the age of 19. So we're not talking about someone that's like just got a good job, right? We're talking about someone that has a lot of money, a huge estate, vast amount of land, probably vast amount of workers under them. They are very much the elite in Russian society. Okay, Act 2. He played the part of a young Russian aristocrat. So early on in his life, he was kind of just doing the normal thing that was expected of him. And what was normal was squandering your inheritance on gambling, using your villages and later house to pay off debts because you gambled so much, and follow the depraved Russian landowner by taking advantage of serf girls, right? So raping peasants here. Okay, so what I want you to know here, the Russian aristocracy at this point, it's something where these things would not make Tolstoy unique. This is kind of what they were doing as the aristocracy. So they would be gambling away money. They would take advantage of people. You see in other works even, for instance, one of Tolstoy's books, there's some characters that are eventually they tie up a bear and they're abusing it for fun. It's depraved there. At one point, even Tolstoy asked basically, I think it's his aunt, as a young man, what to do about some issue, and the aunt's like, well, what are you talking about? Just go get another mistress and that'll solve it. So, if you want to look a little more about that, you could look at the Confession, which does cover that. He breaks from the aristocratic path by becoming a writer and repentant nobleman. So instead of retiring to his country estate, he turns to writing, and specifically writing as a Russian. He feels like a lot of their authors before, they want to try to imitate the West, and he does not want that. He wants to specifically write as a Russian. He alienated himself from the literary intelligentsia, so kind of the literary elite, with eccentric views and combative nature. So to get this clear, right, he breaks from the aristocratic path and does something weird, which is writing. What? Right? Most of the time, if you're aristocracy, what you would do is you maybe go into the military and serve for a little bit and then retire while still young back at your estate. Okay? Instead, he goes to his country estate and turns to writing. Then, to make it worse, the people that might like you would be these writers or these groups of writers, right? He doesn't get along with them. Then he becomes more unique. He's ashamed of the immoral institution of serfdom and joined the movement that believed the peasants were Russia's best class. So he basically recognizes and says, listen, how we've treated the serfs or peasants is wrong. And so he joins a movement of people that want to basically say the peasants as Russians' best class. Act 4. Oh, happy days, sort of. So, what happens with him then is, as he's writing, he also decides to become a school reformer and teacher. He has a husband and father, and then he returns to educating children. So this is one of the actually amazing things about Tolstoy, is his establishment of the schools and the alphabet there. He was very intrigued with actually writing in a guide for teaching the children how to learn the Russian alphabet. He put this into work that he wanted to educate the vast population, not just those are from the aristocracy have a private foreign tutor. Right? 1869, pens his greatest epic, War and Peace. Right, that's kind of what people say. It's the longest novel, or the greatest novel. Sometimes people say that. Enjoys the countryside and closeness with children. So these are in many ways his best years. Him and Sonia, his wife, are getting along as much as they can get along. And he's doing good things. He's a reformer. And on top of it, like his literature is going awesome. He's writing amazing works. And to make it even more cool, right? He's having lots of time with his family at a beautiful place in the countryside. It's good. Now, that's going to quickly change. Oh, sad days, sort of. Yeah, look at that beard. Right. Call it work of fighting for the peasantry. So as he starts to join that movement, he realizes it's going to be a lot harder than they originally imagined. And you're going to be a really lone voice in that. Now, he also has depression, loss, obsession with death, and faith. And I'll kind of unpack that. So he starts to have more depression, but specifically the loss is he starts to lose some of his children. So it would be very common in the time period to lose children. So you often would not have all of your children reach into adulthood. And in this case, I think it's 2 or 3 children that do not for Tolstoy, but they die young. And the grief just really hit him hard, seeing his children die. And this kind of put him in a tailspin where he became obsessed with death. And this is what's important for the death of Ivan Ilyich. Because we talked about the start of the year about memoirs is fiction, thinly veiled autobiography. And in some ways, I mean, you could say that with the death of Ivan Ilyich, is it really just Tolstoy writing himself in there? But obsession with death, he becomes obsessed with it, and there's despair over it that, he can't escape it, and he can't escape that some of his children and loved ones he's going to see die in front of him. So what eventually happens is he does have kind of a conversion or a kind of faith moment at the end of that journey. But his faith kind of is a weird kind of thing. It's very ascetical. He becomes kind of monastic in there. So what he does is he kind of strips down all of kind of non-essential things of wealth, of exterior things, and focuses on the interior world. Later in his life, he was known for looking like, a beggar. He gets rid of kind of all worrying about his wealth and all those things, and just the interior world is what to work on. Despite trials, continues to publish various